After being forfeited in round 2 for wearing an electronic watch, Indian chess grandmaster Baskaran Adhiban struck back by winning 2 games in a row. In case you want to know more about this incident, the link of this article will be in the description. Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to share with you a fascinating attacking game played in round 5 at 2020 Indian Team Chess Championships, with the white piece is playing international master Raja Harshit and his opponent is Grandmaster Baskaran Adhiban. Raja Harshit was playing with the white pieces opened up with e4, to which Adhiban responded with e5. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, we have the Lopez a6 Morphy defense, bishop a4, knight f6, white castles kingside, and bishop c5. Other popular alternatives are bishop e7, b5, or knight takes e4, but in our game we have bishop c5, c3, white is preparing to establish a classical pawn center, b5, bishop b3, d6, d4, bishop goes back on b6, and this time white is challenging black's pawn structure on the queen side, a4. Meanwhile, black is pinning white knight and h3. In here, the most popular move is considered to be, bishop g5, but in our game we first see h3, and only after bishop h5, white's dark squared bishop pinned black knight. Already, bishop takes f6 is the threat, because if you recapture with the queen, then after a takes b5, the rook on a8 will hang if you recapture. That's why black played rook b8, after which white closed the center with d5. By the way, I have to tell you that this position had also been seen in 2006 in a game played between Vasily Ivanchuk and Kirill Georgiev, where in here Ivanchuk proceeded with a takes b5 and then played knight a3, but in our game after rook b8 we have d5. Black knight retreated on e7 already. The pawn on e4 hangs, that's why we see bishop c2, h6, and finally bishop takes f6 is on the board. So finally white is capturing on f6, but this is allowing black to open up the g file, and later by relying on that file black will organize a ferocious attack. King h2, rook g8, and queen d3, which steps into a brilliant combination. Well, instead it was better to go for a takes b5, but in our game we have queen d3, which stepped into a marvelous rook takes g2 sacrifice. White accepted the rook sacrifice and we have rook g6. And now, I guess, already you can see what's the problem with queen d3, because when the queen is on d3, it's becoming a target for a royal fork. But let's go back. I want you to see the difference. For example, after rook g8, if you won't play queen d3 and go for a takes b5, then in this case, rook takes g2 is not dangerous because, yes, your queen is not on d3, there are no forking threats, and white is managing to consolidate his position. White is a tempo up. But instead we have queen d3, and that stepped into a brutal rook sacrifice in the style of old romantic era of chess. King h2, knight f4. So by relying on the fact that white king and queen were misplaced, black is managing to put his knight on an aggressive attacking square. Rook g1. Meanwhile, white is using his chance to bring the rook on g1, is creating a counter-attacking threat, and at the same time by playing rook g3 white can later support the pawn on h3. King e7, black is not capturing the queen, is keeping the queens alive, and now queen d7 will follow. Queen d2 and bishop takes f3. Yeah, if you won't play queen d2, for example, if queen d1, then this time queen d7 is coming, and if rook g3, then bishop takes f2. Everything is hanging. Suddenly all black pieces became attacking monsters. Only this rook is somewhat passive, but in our game we will see how Baskaran Adhiban would switch into the attack that rook as well. So in our game after king e7 we have queen d2 and the knight on f3 dropped. Bishop d3. At some point maybe white can play bishop f1, but meanwhile black is proceeding with the attack. Queen d7, hitting on h3, rook g3 and bishop g2. You know what? White is in deep trouble. A takes b5 and finally the last piece is also joining the party. A deflective move, but of course the rook is untouchable because once your rook leaves the third rank, there is no one to protect the pawn on h3 and white king is getting checkmated. That's why in here Raja Harshit decided to give up his queen. He played queen takes f4. He takes f4. A desperate attempt, of course, but this is allowing white to prolong his resistance. Right now, if we take a look at the position, white has a knight and a rook against the queen, right? But that's not enough. Queen c8. Now black will switch into the attack the queen from the 8th rank. Knight d2, queen g8 check, king f3. Well, if not king f3, king f1, then can you find a winning move for black? Ready? Well, bishop takes f2 can follow, something which we're also going to see in our game after king f3. Again, that bishop takes f2 move followed. This is a sacrifice which is removing the defender which was covering the g3 square and black queen penetrates the 3rd rank. King e2, queen e3 check, king d1, queen takes d3, and now the f-pawn will march forward. In return, white is managing to get a passed pawn on the a file, but black is faster. f3, and now if you hurry with a7, then yeah, there is a mating threat. You can't go for a pawn promotion. If king c1, then yeah, it's over. You're also losing your rook and the pawn as well. That's why after f3 we have king c1, but anyways f2 is on the board. Like in the previous line, you should not hurry with a7. That's why white played rook a4, moved away his rook from the dangerous 1st rank, and black queen appears on the board, the 2nd queen. Knight takes f1, queen takes f1 check, king c2, queen f2 check, and now yeah, black can always play queen a7. Now if king c1, then simply queen a7, something which is better than the path which white chose in the game. In here, white played king d3 and also lost the pawn on b2. Right now, queen b5 can be a threat. For example, if a7, then queen b5 check. Yeah, if rook c4, then queen b1, and then black can successfully neutralize the pawn on a7. In our game we have king c4, queen b1, a7, and the pawn on e4 also drops, king b5, queen takes d5 check, king a6, which is even worse, steps into a checkmate, and finally in the end we have a very picturesque checkmate on the board. With his king, white went too far, and finally black managed to announce an artistic checkmate. Truly a brilliant attack by Baskaran Adhiban and a final marvelous checkmate. Luckily that incident in round 2 didn't affect much on his game, and in round 4 we see a marvelous performance by Adhiban. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning move for white. It's white to move, and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Here are more suggestions for you. Feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video.